what each patient needs, and then we laugh and joke about how we're getting older. 75% of her profession was medicated. She said what they're doing is the drug reps are coming in and saying, look, you're in a really stressful profession. You know that you're going to get hit with depression sooner or later because of a high stress level. So you may as well get started on these drugs now to just sort of like nip it in the bud. Because they're going with this totally incorrect hypothesis, which is one of the biggest lies in history, the serotonin lie. Serotonin isn't low in depression like they tell you. It's high. So you already got a high level of serotonin. They come in with the drug and increase it even more. And then you end up with the new study we got last week saying, these drugs seem to cause long-term depression. Really? Like, I'm surprised. I've been trying to tell you that it's going to do that for 20 years.
Well, let me ask you about the what they consider to be a weapon of mass destruction here in America. At least that's the way it's listed, and that would be vaccines. Every time I walk into a Walmart, they want me to take a flu vaccine. I've never had a flu vaccine, and I've never had the flu.
Right.
Maybe that's just a coincidence, you understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that really scares me to see those. I mean, if people didn't learn anything from the swine flu vaccine, you know, maybe it is. It's just sad. I can't imagine that people would line up for those, but they do. But then people are kept from learning the history of all of these things, too. I mean, how many people know that LSD and PCP both were medications? That they were introduced as medications? I mean, I've got reports that doctors, obstetricians in Salt Lake City thought that LSD was so safe, they were handing it out to pregnant women. PCP was on the market for 7 years before. It wasn't the AMA, it wasn't the doctors that wanted PCP pulled, it was police and courts that wanted PCP pulled. Because they were having to deal with so many cases.
The PCP, I mean, that actually that was an animal tranquilizer. They started putting it on pots, stuff like that, out in California. They called them peace pills, PCP pills.
Yeah.
And by the way, now that I think about all of the LSD, it came in those nice little pressed tablets. Those weren't made in somebody's back alley meth lab, you know?
Yep. Well, now you know who delivered those. The makers of antidepressants. Amazing.
We are really being drugged down and poisoned. I mean, our food is being poisoned. Our this genetically modified crap. Rats won't eat genetically modified corn, but they're feeding it to you and your children.
That's right. Well, you got to understand that Monsanto is the granddaddy of all of these companies. They're the umbrella company that has all the food companies under them, the seed companies under them, and the drug companies under them. So the whole idea is to screw up the seeds so that they don't produce the nutrition that you need from the plant, genetically modify the food as well so that you're not getting the nutrition. They know that what Hollywood has found out. Hollywood has such a fast pace. You either are a real health nut to be able to keep up the nutrition, to provide the energy to do that, or you have to reach for drugs to stimulate and force your body to be able to keep up with that pace. These companies know that. They know that if you don't get the nutrition to provide the energy level your body needs to perform all the functions and keep up with your pace of life, that you're going to have to end up going to a doctor because parts of your body aren't going to work anymore. So then they can sell you the drugs to force you. That's the whole plan, is to milk every penny you've got before you die. And people have no clue because, like I said, it's all marketing. America's the only country where they can actually advertise prescription drugs. Wait a minute, I might have heard of one other country. I can't even remember now which one it was. But I think they just started. But at this point, America's about the only one. And we use, from what I heard, the very large majority of all prescription drugs. Somewhere between 80 and 90% that are produced. It's a mess.
Now, is there hope? I mean, can we turn this around? Now, by the way, let me get back here. Let me get back to Donna and Mark Taylor, because of what's happening here. Now, a few of my listeners made some donations. Some of them made some donations to me, so I was able to help get the lawyers here, get this information out, start raising money for Donna and Mark. And by the way, let me point out in the story that I just put out. In the story I just put out, they I mentioned that John DeCamp, Franklin Cover-Up, the author of Franklin Cover-Up, never paid Mark nothing. Michael Moore didn't pay Mark nothing. And John DeCamp handled this lawsuit against the financial companies. I said he won a small settlement that wound up going somewhere other than the hands of Donna and Mark Taylor. And of course, bowling at Columbine by Michael Moore. Moore used Mark in a publicity campaign to force Kmart to stop selling ammunition in Colorado, and Moore paid Mark nothing for his involvement either. Is that accurate? I mean, and if I recall right, you said that oh my God, this the camp just screwed up the whole lawsuit. That they were threatening other people. Did he get threatened? What happened?
Okay, what happened was Mark filed his lawsuit. DeCamp came on as an attorney for Mark Taylor. I had 3 of the top attorneys in the country ready to come on with DeCamp to fight this lawsuit. It would have been one of the biggest and most high-profile lawsuits in the country. DeCamp took a nosedive for some reason. He did not meet discovery in the case, and if you know anything about court cases, you know that it's pretty much like somebody in a boxing match just falling down and pretending to be knocked out so this other guy wins. And it sure looked like it in this case. You have to meet discovery or your case is gone. And of course, at that point, all the other attorneys were not about to come on because they knew that the case couldn't be won. So why that happened, I don't know. I don't know if it was an accident. I don't know if it was intentional.
I don't believe the old saying is in politics, nothing happens by accident.
Anyway, that was the end of the Columbine case at that point, and another attorney was brought on to help the camp. He was an so-called ex-pharmaceutical attorney that had now switched sides. It didn't look to me like he ever switched sides. He talked Mark into going in for a settlement, so-called settlement, where the drug company agreed to donate $10,000 to a charity of Mark's choice. That was his settlement. And when he came out of that, Mark called me as he left that settlement. They had him locked in a room by himself for, I can't even remember how long. It was so long that the Denver Post reporter that I talked to that was standing outside just couldn't believe it. It was at least 5 hours. They refused to let his mother in the room with him. And I think Mark had just barely turned 18. I'm going to have to go back and check. Maybe he had just turned 21. But anyway, it was to a point that they could refuse to have her come in. And as he came out, he said to me, "I signed the papers, I settled with them, now I don't have to go to jail." I said, "Mark, what are you talking about? Nobody was going to put you in jail." They had him convinced that he was going to go to jail if he didn't sign those settlement papers. So...
Intimidation again, more intimidation of Mark.
Right.
And
right.
So
and it got rid of that lawsuit that they were so worried about, that on the 10th anniversary of Columbine, if the world happened to notice, good old USA Today, I will never buy that paper. I will never waste my time looking at that paper, because they put out an article, and I'm sure they got a big advertising contract for doing so. 10th anniversary of Columbine, they put out an article called The Myths of Columbine. And guess what one of the #1 myths were that they put out?
Oh, that the shooters were on drugs.
Eric and Dylan were on antidepressants. That was the big myth. And I immediately contacted the writer. I mean, before it even went out nationwide, because there's so many papers nationwide that will pick up the USA Today stories and run them locally. So I called them immediately, almost a week before any other paper could pick it up. And I said, "How did you miss one of the biggest lawsuits in this country?" And talked about Mark's case. And he wrote back and he said, "Oh, well, you are right about the Luvox. I'm going to have to change that." Well, the change never came. It didn't matter how many times I emailed him demanding that change. It was left in there. That came out, I think it was a Monday night, and by Sunday all of these smaller papers picked it up, took it nationwide. I now run into people saying, "Oh, well, I understood that those kids really weren't on drugs."
Yeah, and those 17 little children deserved everything they got at Waco. Yeah, I've heard that too, you know.
Yeah.
Now, those people at Waco, they deserved what they got. They were selling guns. They were, yeah, what did those 17 little children do to deserve what they got? But this is our press. This is our press covering up for the drug companies. Because why? Because they're the biggest advertisers. Because when you're making a 7,000% profit off of your products, well, my God.
Yep. It's money. It took me a while to figure that out. I was so naive. I couldn't believe that people would do the kinds of things that they do to others for money.
This is all about money. It's all about control. Of course, the same situation is under our banking, and you know, we're telling the truth about the Federal Reserve, and our founding father Thomas Jefferson. You know, he saw things so clearly. He told us, if you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, pretty soon your children will grow up. The banks and the corporations that spring them around, the Monsantos, the Archer Daniels Midlands out there, the Eli Lillys, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land that we conquered.
That's right. They've done it.
We got
nothing but slaves.
A million Americans got kicked out of their homes, and George Bush gave his going away present to the banksters that put him in office was $2 trillion. Your grandchildren will never be able to pay even the interest on that money that they paid for their yachts with. They put out $1 million bonuses with, folks. This is how serious
what else he also did. He also made sure that it wouldn't be worth your while to go after these drug companies for what these drugs do to you.
Now repeat that, please. Repeat that, because I want to know. I want to know if Mark Taylor he's been held for a year now. Right before he got put in this thing, he came through Tucson, and I met him, and I met his uncle, and I met his mother. And I'd met Donna before, so I knew Donna from her stay in New Mexico. But as soon as they left me, suddenly he's taken to an emergency room, and from the emergency room put into this facility that he's in now, that he's been held for a year. They got temporary custody. I mean, I can't even imagine how they could do that. They conned his mother into getting a place here. They were trying to help him. We're trying to help him. We're trying to help him. You need to get a place here. So as soon as she got a place here, she became an Arizona resident, although they were just coming through on their way back to Colorado, and suddenly they had control of him. Now, if they made $1.5 million, if they ran a hospital bill up of $1.5 million on me for 3 broken ribs and a bump on the head, I wonder how much Mark's hospital bill is.
Yeah, really. Good. I know. That's why people are there. That's why we have prisons. People have no idea. It's all big business. It's all for money. All of it. I mean, this has been such a wake-up call for me. Oh my gosh. It's just amazing when you wake up and find out where you really live and what's going on around you.
You know, I said I took an oath in 1964 to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I actually read the Constitution. I read the Constitution and realized what I'd taken an oath to, but I also read the Communist